Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Today we'll be talking about advertising with a focus on ad creative. We originally developed this presentation for a Strut client who wanted to improve the quality of the creative their own teams were producing. They're often responsible for extending larger campaigns developed by Strut, especially on channels they own and manage themselves. And sometimes they create tactical communications for in-house projects we're not involved in at all. In both of those cases, our client wanted to bring their creative output to another level. I'll provide a definition of advertising and quickly touch on one element, conversion. I'll spend most of our time talking about ad creative and then provide 10 practical tips to help you and your team make better ads. My name is Aaron Salas, and I'm one of the partners here at Strut. A big part of my job is strategy, helping our clients better understand what makes them uniquely valuable to their customers, helping clients use creative and technology to tell their stories better, to improve perception of their brand, and to sell their product and service offerings. At Strut, we help our clients build deep and meaningful relationships with their most important audiences. We do that by building brands, digital platforms, and campaigns. I'll start by asking, what is advertising? Here's a good working definition. Advertising is a notice or announcement in a public medium motivating someone to take action. You might wonder how long advertising's been around. We don't know exactly, but it's been with us a long time. The first ad on papyrus is older than this one. But this example is really interesting. It's a mosaic floor that's 2,400 years old, uncovered recently in Turkey. It's a kind of public service announcement urging its audience to enjoy life because none of us will last forever. It's not clear if this is in a public forum or a location that's a little more private, but the function is the same. It's to motivate a change of behavior. Now, I don't know if this is the most comprehensive or academic definition you can find, but it does contain all of the main elements of advertising. The format, a medium, creative containing a message, an audience, and a conversion, the action that's the ultimate goal. These are the 5 foundational elements that make up advertising. Now, before I talk about creative, which is my main focus today, I'll start with the end result by briefly touching on conversion. What do we want our audience to do? It's almost always to get someone to buy something, whether that's a product, a service, or an idea. Buying something often involves changing your mind, to value a brand differently, to support a cause, to adopt a political position, to vote for someone, or to change your behavior. Now with that, I'll move on to how we motivate people. Ad creative is the message and how it's presented. What makes good ad creative? Well, the truth is, we don't know. Advertising's been studied perhaps more than any area of business outside of the stock market, and yet like the stock market, there is no one winning formula. Some highly effective fads last just a few months, while some reliable approaches last much longer. But culture, technology, broad trends, and personal preferences shift and evolve over time. And like any human endeavor that creates feedback loops, advertising changes our culture so much, it changes how ad creative is received by consumers. Generally, good advertising possesses these qualities. It's noticeable, makes you think, is memorable, it conveys the value you'll receive, it builds on what you already know and believe, and really great creative leaves some space for the audience to fill in and arrive at a deeper answer themselves. Good creative is always built on truth. McCann got this right 100 years ago when they adopted their motto, truth well told. There's simply no better description of good advertising. Ideas are powerful. Several years ago, Pepsi spent tens of millions of dollars refreshing their brand, retooling their packaging, and rolling it out. And since then, they've spent billions on advertising to build that brand. And yet that can be ruined forever with one little idea, a tiny, quick sketch that's been floating around on social media. I've never been able to unsee this image, and I suspect now that you've seen it, this idea will stay with you too. The global multi-billion-dollar brand that's been seared into your mind has had its meaning changed with a doodle. Advertisers of all kinds leverage this effect, the ability to implant an idea in the mind through visuals. The idea that smoking is an insidious threat to your health, chipping away at you over time, is a powerful idea. And here, it's so simply expressed, it will stay with you. Here's the powerful idea behind a simple toy. With Lego, you're not buying plastic blocks. You're buying a way to unlock your child's imagination. That's where the value is. Not in the product features, but in the way the product brings ideas and imagination to life. It's in the benefit derived from the product. And that, in fact, is one of the most important principles in advertising. People buy the why. Harvard Business School professor Theodore Levitt may have said it best, or at least most memorably, people don't buy quarter-inch drill bits, they buy quarter-inch holes. People buy for all kinds of reasons: status, refreshment, identity, nostalgia, trust, control, and more. But it's always the why. What's a why? While products, services, and even ideas all possess features, we know that people don't buy features. Features provide valuable benefits. And benefits can be a good why in your advertising. But people don't become emotionally invested in benefits. People notice, buy, and become advocates for emotional reasons. That's what builds a strong relationship between audience and brand. That's a better why. What does this look like on paper? Well, every product has a number of features. And each of those features provide valuable benefits to the customer. And those rational benefits, or combinations of them, produce emotional benefits. It's these emotional takeaways that provide the true reason to value the product. This is one of my favorite examples of how this looks in the real world. When the iPod was first launched, it was so new and so radically different, Apple had to explain to customers what an iPod was and how it worked. An ultra-slim 5 GB hard drive with a fast connection to download your music library, a long-lasting rechargeable battery, and high-fidelity white headphones. These are the product features, and they were better than anything on the market. But the benefit is 1,000 songs in your pocket. An iPod lets you take your whole music library with you everywhere you go, and that is a good why. But Apple knew they could take this to another level. They could make iPod an emotionally powerful brand. How does an iPod make an iPod user feel? It's the emotional experience of the product that made an iPod worth every penny. Apple understood this and shifted to dramatizing the product's emotional takeaway. They focused on the feeling, the freedom, the emotional high that you get from having your music on the go. Framed in this way, the iPod is a mood-altering and life-changing product. We have a process at Strut to uncover the features, benefits, and emotional takeaways that deserve to be the focus of marketing. It involves facilitated sessions with stakeholders and often work with our research partners to understand market context and develop customer insights. The result? A customer value proposition that articulates the specific ways a customer receives value from your product or service. Another great example. A generation before the iPod, Nike understood this principle too. They could have rattled off 100 features offered by their shoes. Materials, shape, color, stitching quality, cushioning, or they could have focused on the benefits those features provide: comfort, grip, durability. Of course, these are offered by competitors' products too. And so instead, Nike went to the emotional takeaway. Just do it. Nike reminded us of the emotional state that comes from challenging yourself to athletic participation. And that one simple message was delivered through an infinite array of communications channels and brand touch points, mixed and remixed over decades. Once they'd identified the true emotional center of their brand, they could focus on telling that story in new and fresh ways, in different sports and market segments, and for different customers, at any athletic level, at any age, whatever your background, whatever your story. For almost 4 decades, this core motivation, the emotional lift of saying yes to sport, has fueled the brand and its customers. Emotions are powerful persuaders. What emotional value do you get from noise-canceling headphones? What could motivate you to provide a good home to a new pet? No spec sheet, no list of pros and cons, no amount of rational features and benefits could convince someone to welcome a dog into their home. But the joy and richness you can bring to a dog's life, and of course the joy you receive back, is the overwhelming reason to do it. Without saying a word, these ads communicate the lifetime of play, adventure, companionship, and sheer joy you get from adopting a dog. I'm going to spend a little time talking about images. Ideas are more powerful and more memorable when they're delivered through images. Yeti's done a great job of this, selling their very high quality products. Some smart aspirational copywriting says everything you need to know about what their product does for you. Take the road less traveled than the road less traveled. Though they do go on to provide 40 more words listing features and benefits below that. But I wonder, do you even need the copy? The image alone of land cruisers carrying supplies in a distant, exotic landscape says it all. Our brains have been hardwired by evolution to make sense of the world visually, to interpret color, recognize patterns, and attach meaning to symbols. Some of the best advertising leverages this deeply ingrained human ability, encoding messages in conceptual images. These are images constructed in a way that combines elements to communicate complex ideas and trigger an emotional response, often without saying a word. Here, a series of ads brings to life the joy you get from driving a nimble European automobile. The comparison to its two-wheeled cousins is instantly decoded by the audience. But the feeling of fun and freedom we get from these images is fragile at first. It can't be done with language. Emotionally evocative images are accepted and remembered when words might fail. These conceptual images bypass the rational part of the brain. This image triggers an emotional response to an automotive message of a very different kind. When women were finally permitted to drive in Saudi Arabia, Ford combined two well-understood symbols to mark the milestone with an emotional punch. Again, cleverly combining a couple of symbols or archetypal images can bypass the rational argument and instantly communicate your product's value proposition. I love this series of ads for KFC. It uses beautifully lit fried chicken to demonstrate the heat that comes from their new hot and spicy product line. Again, without saying a word, they've proven on a gut level their most relevant product attribute. And of course, images and words, when used together, are a potent combination. On this billboard, the M cast by spotlights might be evocative of a famous logo, but the words leave no doubt and instantly complete the thought. McDonald's is open at night. This is an interesting conceptual image. On its own, it's a little bit ponderous, but the moment you add a handful of words, the meaning of the picture is clear. Precision parking, Park Assist by Volkswagen. Here's another Volkswagen example. In 1959, when entering the US market, this was their only model. And at that point, the styling was already 20 years out of date. As a marketing image, it's unremarkable. On their own, these words don't mean much either, if anything. There's think big, but what does it mean to think small? But together, these two words and this tiny image created a very powerful idea, strong enough to reshape the most valuable consumer markets of the American automotive industry. Until this point, cars were sold as status symbols. The bigger, the better. There was simply no room in the marketplace for a product that Volkswagen was manufacturing. But this ad opened up new possibilities. It created space in the market, space in people's minds for a small, cheap, dependable car. One that lived outside of and subverted the quest for status. In many of the best ads, the images and words may not say much on their own, and it's only in their combination that they form a new meaning with the power to change minds. Is there a quicker way to remind you what seatbelts do? And now we're going to talk about a Jedi-level move, going beyond images and words, beyond features and benefits, and beyond the emotional takeaway. That's to become a movement, or to champion a movement, perhaps to co-opt a movement, or more often, to advance an existing movement in a substantive way. Apple was about democratizing the power of computing. Nike's Just Do It was about the power of sport. And they've both come to stand for a larger purpose. And other successful brands have done this too. Dove's done a great job confronting us with the harmful realities of the beauty industry and have positioned their brand firmly against the sector's toxic trends. By focusing on equality and acceptance of all body types and sizes, They've both harnessed and given back to the body positive movement by helping to make it mainstream. Now that we've covered a range of larger principles in the advertising world, I'll walk you through 10 practical tips to help you make better ads. The first is to understand your objective. Surprisingly, we see a lot of ads by organizations that don't seem to be clear on what they're trying to achieve. Are you trying to create awareness for your brand, strengthen perceived value, reposition your competition, send people to buy something in a retail environment, add your brand to a mental shortlist, drive audience to a website to enter a sales funnel, or change their behavior in some specific way? Being very clear about your desired outcome is an often overlooked step. Depending on your objective, your advertising will probably fall into one of these two broad categories: strategic brand building, focused on building awareness, teaching the audience about your brand, positioning your offering within the competitive landscape, and helping prospective customers prioritize your brand over the competition. Or tactical sales enablement, teaching the audience precisely why and how to buy your product or service, and to move them into the sales cycle, generating leads, getting the phone to ring, or driving retail sales visits. 2 is to grab attention. The world is a noisy place, and we're constantly bombarded by messages. You need to cut through the clutter. Bold images and bold ideas can help you do that. 3, one ad, one message. This is incredibly important. You may make multiple points, but they should be in the service of one overriding message to increase the odds of it being successfully delivered, remembered, and acted upon. I'm showing this example because despite first appearances, it's only communicating one message: build quality. Every word on this page has one purpose: to convince you of Rolls-Royce build quality. I think in this instance, the strategy is to use build quality as a proxy to invoke discernment, ability to pay for quality, and ultimately status, but that's another discussion. Ads don't always have to get at a deeper truth. Sometimes it's good enough to be remembered. Number 6, if you can't be profound, at least be memorable. Maybe you can be both. There's lots of ways to do it. 5, convey your value proposition. Convey the why people buy, and not the what you're selling. If people are going to remember something about you, it should be ideally the thing that provides them with the most value. There are hundreds of creative ways to express this billion-dollar value proposition. Smell like this incredible man. 6, try to leave something for your audience to complete. Ads are generally more memorable when you can leave a little something for your audience to fill in themselves. Completing the puzzle or bringing something of themselves to the experience provides a reward and stays with you. In this case, that principle is the entire creative concept. Just try not to hear the crack of that cap or the iconic Coke Fizz. 7, leverage what people already have in their heads. If you can invoke something they already have in their mind, their own hopes and dreams, values and assumptions, they're not starting from zero. In this case, the phrase, "don't bring a knife to a gunfight," tells you on a gut level exactly what kind of knife this is. You've proven its value and its performance without having to roll out a spec sheet. There's a time and a place for that rational argument, but people won't explore it if you haven't given them a compelling reason to care. 8, don't try to change people's minds. I know this directly contradicts something I said earlier. Yes, of course, we're trying to change people's minds, but good advertising is like judo. You have to leverage the position and momentum you already have rather than trying to move something 180 degrees. And ideally, you're using your opponent's strength against them to do that. Again, this is about using what the audience already has in their minds, but shifting it, perhaps just a few degrees, to infuse it with a surprising new meaning. The Volkswagen was a small and unassuming vehicle. No amount of advertising was going to let them compete on status. The Think Small campaign took what audiences already understood and shifted what that meant. Apple's done this brilliantly as well. Their I'm a Mac campaign didn't try to change your mind about them. And neither did their Think Different campaign. Apple simply provided new reasons to value what you already knew about them. 9, when you're writing long-form copy for marketing, write using the AIDA model. Awareness, grab the attention of your prospect. Interest, pique their interest in what you're doing or what you're selling. Make it relevant to them. generate desire or a conviction in your offering. And finally, action, motivate your prospect to take your preferred action. And that brings us to 10, end with a clear call to action, a concrete path forward to learn, join, donate, call, try, help, visit, or buy. And I suppose that brings us to my call to action, because we want you to reach out to us if you think that we can help with your advertising or with your communications, technology, or design needs. For more than 2 decades, we've helped organizations big and small tell their stories, build their brands, and strut their stuff. Thank you so much for your time today. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and good luck in all of your advertising endeavors. Thank you.